Moods here. Post vacation, I am rested. I am relaxed. I am tan. Shelby didn't think I could get darker. I absolutely did. I have a ring tan to prove it. Okay, and had a really great time. But now we're back in the studio.
Were you on the
Woohoo!
beach?
Yes.
Couldn't tell by any of your posts.
Woohoo! Yeah, if you didn't see the IG, I was on the beach and I was in a cowboy hat the whole time, and I had the best time of my life. And I was drinking Coronas the whole time. So we're back.
You
We
and
have,
Eli Manning and Snoop Dogg. Cor- Real quickly, Corona
yeah,
feels like they've spent a little too much money on brand partnerships with athletes. I mean, it was Gruden, then it was Tony Romo, then it was Eli,
Yeah,
it's Snoop
Canelo.
Dogg, it's Canelo. I mean, Corona's a great beer and a great
yeah,
selling
it's
beer.
good. Corona
It
and a
feels like they're
lime.
going out of their sort of like the Subway commercials where it's like Charles Barkley does the voiceover, you never see him. Steph Curry, like it's like we get it, Subway, Michael Phelps, like it's a million
Well, it
people.
worked on me. The ads worked on me because I
You
was
were not going to buy it, but now that Eli Manning drinks it and Snoop Dogg sitting courtside, or Carmelo and Eli sitting courtside together. How many times I watch enough basketball to see who's in the crowd? I see
Hmm.
Ben Stiller next to Spike Lee. I've yet to see Eli and Melo at the game together.
but they do drink Coronas together. That's
They
all
Nothing,
that
do.
nothing wrong
matters.
with a cold beer, baby. You already
Let's
know.
open the show with, I guess, probably the heavier topic that we're going to talk about today, which is Drew Gordon, Aaron Gordon's brother, who unfortunately passed away. I believe it was Thursday. Um, really heartbreaking stuff. I feel like there have been a lot of sibling issues this season. Obviously, a death is probably about the worst thing that could happen to a family. So we obviously have nothing but condolences for Aaron and his entire family. I know you just were telling me a story about how you just met Drew, like what, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago, but he was talking about his kids, his wife, and me being a parent.
It hits
That's
home.
that's what hits home, and so just major condolences to the Gordon family. You don't want to see that, and that's just it's the saddest thing. Imagine this your day, and
It's a
day's
normal
going
day.
fine, and you get that call. You know what I mean? And so that just hits close to home
It
to
really
any
does.
parent. Any husband, wife.
And 33, like
It's just so young.
young,
It's so young
young.
and full of life, and you know, 3 kids and married, and life is already. It's truly the saddest the saddest circumstance, and I'm just my heart goes
Praying
out.
for
My heart
healing.
my heart goes out to the Gordon family.
Well,
Yeah.
and I know how close they were because we saw Drew at so many games.
Yeah, he
You
was
know,
he was here a lot.
a lot, and he was easy. Sometimes you're not sure whose
Hmm.
relatives are whose
They
or
look
whose
so
siblings.
Oh
similar.
yeah.
It's
There was no
yeah,
doubt.
you
I
can't
mean,
mistake Drew.
even Joker's brothers, you're like, okay, if I didn't see him next week, I mean, obviously we
Yeah.
know now, but you're like,
Of
oh,
course.
but there was no mistaking who Aaron Gordon's brother
Yeah.
was when you saw his brother Drew there. And actually, I remember when you got introduced to him. I just happened to be catching you at halftime, and
Yeah.
then you were introduced to him, and I kind of walked on. But yeah, he was around plenty. Obviously, he had his own basketball
Yeah.
career that not only got him to the league, but bouncing around in other leagues as well. And it's tragic, and we know how much the Nuggets, just because of the way their season went,
Hmm.
were kind of hurting, right? Certainly Aaron Gordon, just from the knowing they played so well, had an MVP season from the best player in the world, and weren't able to finish it off with another championship. And we get it, only one team wins every year. But then you add to it this, it's so devastating.
Yeah.
And and then it makes you think about all the stuff Michael Porter's dealing with. And it's just a reminder, one, not only how precious life is, but two, how we take for granted that our heroes, our athletes, and I'm sure you deal with it
Yeah.
plenty on social media or just in passing when people are mad that the team you play for
Yeah.
lost. It's like, well, they're
They're
also still
humans.
Yeah.
humans
Yeah,
that
they have a
have
life
they
outside of
have a
the
Yeah.
life,
sport.
and they
Uh,
certainly have family and friends and things going on outside of the thing that they're great at and make a
Right.
living at. But it's just a reminder. Whenever you see anything like this, it's like,
no,
hey,
that's crazy.
hug your kids, hug your loved ones, call your family, and
Tell
tell
them
them
you
you
love
love them.
No,
them.
yeah,
Yep.
but I remember it was one thing specifically when I met Drew that he had said, and I remember I went home, told my wife about it, and I was like, "This is how I want my kids to be." He was just like, "It's the Gordons versus everybody," and I was like, "Man, that really hit home," because I'm not necessarily close with all my siblings and
They're
all
a
that stuff, but
unit.
he was like, it was him, Aaron, and his sister. And he was like, it was us. If one's wrong, hey, we don't care. We're all like, we're riding for ours, and that just hit home. Like that's what you want for your kids. That's what I
Absolutely.
mean. Like all of them together, a band of family, band of brothers, and it's just that was just something I really took to heart. And I remember literally went home that night, and I was like telling my wife, I was like, man, that's how I want my kids to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
want them
I
to
mean,
be that
I'm
close.
very, very close with my siblings, so the thought of anything happening to them is like unimaginable and horrifying. So I just pray that in this time the Gordon family can lean on each other, and I'm sure the Nuggets organization is going to be there to support the Gordons in any way that they can. So I hope that that's what they get. But obviously, very unfortunate. We're praying for healing to the Gordons, especially to Aaron, because they were very close. And yeah, just devastating stuff. So we'll table that for now. So we're not. I'm like in my feelings now. It's emotional because it's heavy stuff. I mean, it's really hard. So we'll transition now a little bit into what could be, could not be, some information that we have seen on the web space. Shams has reported JJ Redick to be the new Lakers head coach, which I think many people saw coming. This was in conversation. I remember BK talking about what's that dynamic going to look like if things go south and they've got this podcast together. So we all kind of saw this coming. Shams has very rarely been wrong, but it sounds like we may be waiting until the finals are over to actually formally announce. But let's just pretend hypothetically he is, which I think we can say that, is the new head coach. How are you guys feeling about that?
Well, this happens a lot too, the holding the news, right? It happens Super Bowl week, especially if something big's going to happen, although I do remember being in Minnesota. It's the funniest thing. So I knew a couple of PR people with the Chiefs who were with the Broncos for a little bit, and they've been in KC a long time. And Minnesota Super Bowl had things you liked and things you didn't, but the media party was at the Mall of America in the amusement park. So I literally see the PR staff, they're right in front of us. They get on the roller coaster. As they're on the roller coaster, Alex Smith gets traded. It's the Tuesday before. So, and there's kind of a cutoff there. You don't want to do this on the eve of the finals. You've got media day going on. But those people get off, and I see them immediately scatter. You don't see them the rest of the night because they knew Alex Smith was going to get traded, and Mahomes was like making the rounds. He'd only played that one game against you guys. And it was funny because he was playing well. Then all of a sudden, the game got close, and they put him back in. And you were just like, okay, there's something different about this dude. But anyway, so that happened. But in general, teams try to respect the biggest thing going on in the league. So if they're going to make some sort of move, a coaching change, they either make it way early or they wait until after the finals. But this is, one of those really poorly kept secrets. And then he's been on a couple shows, and I think JJ even said, I'm focused on calling the finals.
Yeah.
We'll get to the Shams report later. Not denying it. And that's also better because how many times Nick Saban goes, I'm definitely not, or I'm still going to be the coach of the Dolphins. And a week later, he's at Alabama. So I think that he's handling it as well as he can. But your question is,
and it doesn't really feel like a secret that got exposed either, because I feel like it's been talked about for a while now.
Shelby, the NBA and on KOA yesterday, Dave Logan and Big Al were talking about how crazy it is. At the NBA, this is not the first time guys go straight from doing nothing to coaching. I don't say doing nothing, straight from not coaching to coaching. There's no NFL coaches like
point guard. So you know what I mean? Like honestly, if you notice though, the position that usually can do that are point guards because they're the ones running the offense. So
Jason Kidd did it.
It's just a different. No, Steve Nash too.
Steve Nash did it.
Like literally, like it's just a different mindset of okay, now I'm running the offense for the team as a coach instead of being the one running the offense. And so just like how you see with quarterbacks, how quarterbacks and safeties like they kind of like feed into football coaching easier because they know all the plays, they know all the checks, they know the offense just as good as the offensive coordinator, so then they can teach it too.
But so Justin Simmons isn't done playing. But let's just pretend he's like 8 years, I'm good. If he started calling games for a year or two, which is what JJ Redick's been doing, and had a podcast, and then in 3 years didn't get hired by a team he played for, got hired by the Cowboys because the Lakers in some ways are the Cowboys. That would be pretty wild.
It would be.
As much as we like Justin Simmons.
Because,
I mean, it's never happened in the NFL.
I'm not saying like players, but like John Gruden got a job based off of being an analyst. And yeah, he was.
He was a coach forever.
Yeah, he was a coach, but he won a Super Bowl off of Tony Dungy's team.
Sure,
so,
but he's still been a coach for 20
I know, but he's been a coach forever. But then also he got relevant. He got relevant. He got relevant again, and like that because he was doing that QB camp and all that. So everyone's like, all right, well, I want this guy to be the guy. And so I've been saying, like, TV helps. You're hearing, like, people getting these GM jobs, head coaching jobs from being an analyst because you have good takes.
Well, we're even seeing guys like Draymond Green where there's so many conversations about should he still be in the league? This guy, like, is it almost his time? And now we're starting to see him make some more desk appearances.
Well,
and it kind of makes you wonder. Chris Paul was making some desk appearances, and I immediately said when I was watching Chris Paul at the desk, I think I texted one of my friends and said, this feels like a retirement announcement. Like, for some reason, I felt like Chris Paul was maybe slowly on his way out, and seeing him behind a desk and doing more media stuff, it kind of makes you wonder, like, is that next? Because they're kind of setting themselves up for the next chapter of their lives. So either way, I think that JJ will. I'm excited to see what he does with the Lakers.
You have to think LeBron's back because of it, right?
Well, why would you?
That's what I would think.
Well, you
why
take it
would
because
you
it's the
think
Lakers, I guess, and you got AD, but you would.
And they have that relation. I
they
think
do have a
JJ and
podcast.
LeBron are building an off-season
They
relationship
have that relationship,
already.
but they're far away from being a contender right now by their roster. And if you're thinking
Well,
about
they've got to be closer without
LeBron,
Darvin
I'm
Ham.
saying with I don't think
I don't
Darvin
think
Ham
Darvin Ham's a
necessarily.
bad coach.
It's like when you are dealing with superstars, how much can you really tell them? Or that's why JJ Redick going in there really doesn't make that big of a deal, because it's like, LeBron and AD that's their team. Like JJ Redick
And
is
it's
going
mostly
to do so
LeBron's
much,
team.
But if JJ Redick says something and LeBron doesn't want to do it, just like if Darvin Ham was there, just like if Frank Vogel was there, he's changing the play.
It's fair.
So it's just like
LeBron
the
does
head
have the
coach
power.
only does so much when you
Fair.
have the players that they have
that type of
to have that
yeah.
pedigree that come behind them.
Yeah.
It's just like look at the coaches that Peyton Manning has played, like, that have had. Adam Gase, like, he was great when he had Peyton, and then when Peyton left, Adam Gase struggled.
Hey, John Fox.
You know what I mean? Like, it's all these coaches that have struggled when they have their, like, these players of a certain pedigree. Like, it shows you really don't have to coach as much when you have these players.
When
They
the players
lead.
can coach.
Yeah, they lead.
But John Fox was full of as many cliches, especially on the mic, on the podium, as any coach in the history of football. The one that he said that I think rang true more than any across all sports: show me a good coach and I'll show you good players.
100%.
Because Phil Jackson's a great example. The years he didn't have Michael Jordan or Kobe, he wasn't as good of a.
Well, think of a little. Remember
Fair.
what did
That's
Ben
fair. You
Johnson?
make
What
a
did Ben
great point.
Johnson,
Yeah.
the Lions OC said? He said, out of all these jobs out there, most of them are going to be. Most of these coaches will be gone in 3 years. So it shows he knows he needs a team. He needs to go to the perfect situation with the right players in order to make him successful. Because a coach can only do so much if he doesn't have players.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Okay, so one more hot topic that I think we should get into before we do a little bit of a series preview for the NBA Finals is all the chatter amongst the Twitter sphere, X, you name it, TV. We're seeing people talk a whole lot about the WNBA. And I think I want to start by saying, as a light-skinned woman that's got a foot on both sides of the race conversation, I hate that race is even being brought up. I hate it.
Yeah.
To me, what it should be about is the fact that we're finally watching the WNBA. I'm going to let you talk because I know that you were expressing some frustrations. There was one thing you said earlier, and you can elaborate on it more about, the frustration of people who are inserting their opinion who haven't always watched the WNBA.
Yeah.
And I think that that's some frustration that these players are also feeling. But the devil's advocate to that is that they have wanted eyeballs on them for so long. They finally get eyeballs on them, and they don't like what people have to say. That comes with people watching your sport. We are a very opinionated as sports fans. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong. My point is, you finally get the attention that you have deserved for a very long time and wanted for a very long time. And now you don't like that people who just started watching the sport are inserting their opinion. That comes with the territory of getting so many more eyeballs on your sport. So that would be my only counter to what you said. But I absolutely hear what you're saying in terms of you've got some people that have these strong opinions that just started feeling emotionally invested in this sport. So I get that. But again, to me, kind of comes with the territory a little bit.
I feel that, it's not that necessarily like, their opinions, they're so strong. Well, they are very strong. It's the fact that you're trying to make it something that it's not.
Okay, I agree
All
with
this
that.
talk about, is everyone bullying Caitlin Clark and this? It just shows that, like, you're picking that to try to stir controversy. Because look at the rest of the WNBA. They're getting their ass beat.
For
Like
sure.
all the young players are literally getting their ass beat.
I
Kate
can't say,
Kate
though-
Martin got left by the
I know,
bus.
but no,
I
Did you see
not-
it?
but
can't say,
Angel
though,
Reese
as
is-
a woman, there is some pettiness involved in this. I can see
Some.
it. I was going to say, I'm not going to say physically in terms of
Yeah.
physicality that she's getting beat up. I've always thought that Caitlin Clark does a little bit of flopping, and it's a little much.
A little bit.
And I
She's
knew
literally-
that
she
in the
just flops.
WNBA that she was going to struggle with the physicality difference between college
Yeah.
level and WNBA. But what I will say is, when they come forward and say, we don't hate her, but then they've got these petty comments and they've got these things, like, Petty
Well,
to
I
me
get
is
it
very
though.
clear.
But
and
I
see
get it though. I get it though because it's everyone's trying to make it seem like the only reason that people are watching the WNBA is because of Caitlin Clark, and that's not true because she's a part of it, but also all those years, in college, they weren't just watching Caitlin Clark because I'm pretty sure South Carolina people watching South Carolina, and
UConn,
people watching
Tennessee,
UConn,
and
Absolutely.
people watching
Stanford.
LSU,
She's
Angel
not the
Reese.
sole
But like
no,
that's the
I get
thing though,
that.
it's just like this is all that people want to talk about is Caitlin Clark. I think the biggest thing that they're trying to say is the WNBA is bigger as in a whole than just Caitlin Clark. And I think she's a hell of a player. She's going to go through her learning curve.
For sure.
And I think people are getting backlash for even saying that. Like before, people were so mad at Diana Taurasi for saying that no, she's going to struggle, and she has.
there's a
Like you know what I mean?
learning curve,
Like it's a
absolutely.
complete more physical game. And I just think that I think Bob Costa said it right because Angel Reese is getting her ass kicked. Other players are getting their ass kicked. It's just that certain commentators are looking for controversy and they're
fishing for it,
and
for
they're
sure.
fishing and they're trying to make this about race when this is about basketball.
Before I toss to you, BK, the one thing I'm going to say on that is that here's what I've learned from having conversations with people that are just freshly watching the sport, because their opinion does matter.
Yeah.
They're finally a part of this. Let's not be mad that people are finally watching the WNBA. This is what we've wanted for years and years and years. So in having conversations with people, what I will tell you is many people started watching Caitlin Clark not because she had a crazy loud coach that wore crazy outfits and she was part of an LSU team that had a crazy fun culture to watch. And Angel Reese, listen, not denying her talent, but a lot of people got their eyeballs on Angel Reese after extra hoopla and then said, oh shit, she's a good basketball player. That's not why they first started to pay attention to her. They paid attention to her because of the extra stuff, all great stuff, because she's building her personal brand. She's the first rookie to go to the Met Gala. I mean, she's bossing up and good on her. But a lot of people started watching Angel Reese for reasons outside of her skill and then said, oh, she's a skilled player. People started watching Caitlin Clark because she's a hooper, period.
Well,
yeah. She wasn't doing extra things. She wasn't really begging for attention. And I personally, if I were a women's basketball player on the college level with the NILs being the way that they are, grow that brand. Be that person. Make those statements. Do the ring flashy moments. I'm not dogging that, but that's why a lot of people paid attention to Angel Reese. So she did kind of build that villain mantra. So in doing that, you got to know that that's going to follow you forever.
But also, it's just, people are complaining about stuff that's not basketball. And,
You're right.
And I think that's where
that's because she did stuff that wasn't basketball.
No, I get that, but I think it's more of I think it's the issue of you're getting comments that men don't have to deal with that the women are having to
like
deal with.
Analysts that are at a desk should be speaking about the sport.
The sport, and that's the thing. Deal
I
with the
get
sport.
that.
Why are we talking about drama?
I get
you
that.
And that's where the issue.
I totally get that.
And that's why I feel like a lot of the annoyance is coming from.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the sport.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about what's actually going on. Yeah, these rookies did not know that shit that they were doing in college will not fly here.
Right.
And so, yeah, there's a learning curve. These rookies are getting beat up.
Mm-hmm.
But that just shows that you didn't watch people didn't watch WNBA before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and so also, I'm always been advocating for this. I think Denver needs a WNBA team.
Hell yeah.
I think it would be
They
awesome
didn't get
for
granted
Denver to
one
get.
recently, but there's certainly a group, and we know some of the people involved with it, and it should be coming. It's likely coming. Denver also needs a women's soccer team. There was a packed house at Dick's Sporting Goods Park, and if let's just say all of us were part of the ownership group, we would certainly do what we could to acquire one, if not all three of those Colorado kids that are on the U.S. national team, and the captain and Lindsey Horan, and obviously Mal Swanson, as well as Sophia Smith, right? They're all ballers, and we know how big soccer is in Denver, in the metro, and has been for a long time. And if Dick's Sporting Goods Park was located further south, their attendance would probably be even higher, but their per capita season ticket base is really high. But shifting back to the WNBA, there's a lot of layers to this. And so I'm old enough to remember when Tiger Woods broke on the scene, because Tiger Woods is 2 years older than me. So I'm in college when he decides to leave Stanford, goes pro. I want to say it was the Milwaukee Open. He wins his first tournament, wins the majors.
Here we go.
Wins the majors. Yeah, you could have left preschool, left kindergarten and gone over and seen him. But
are you sure I was born?
But
yet?
here's the thing, 1997. Here's the thing. Tiger bursts on the scene. And without question, race is certainly a factor because he's different. But because Tiger was so good and different, a rising tide, another John Fox daily quote was talking about Peyton Manning, a rising tide raises all boats. Well, that's what he did, and the purses exploded, and the eyeballs on golf and the participation in golf exploded. But he was different. I'll go back to 2011 when Tim Tebow got here. He's not the first white quarterback, even in a sport that's 65, 70% black. Lots of white quarterbacks. Always has been, likely always will be. But Tim Tebow, there was that movement element because of the way he just was and the people that gravitated towards him. Johnny Manziel, similarly, and Johnny Football and all of that. So sometimes you have movements that are bigger than just a sport where the NFL is already huge.
It's like a culture.
There's a culture thing. And so I don't think even the casual fans, they're checking out the WNBA now mostly because they want to see how Caitlin Clark's doing at this level. I don't know if they care as much about Angel Reese or about how good
some people
the
are
New York
just
team.
they
or the
just
Sun
follow
are
her.
undefeated. The Sun are undefeated, and that's what I'm saying. That's the issue, though, is that we keep talking about one person.
But
and I think that's what is dumbing down the WNBA is because we keep talking about one person, but we're not talking about any of the storylines. What about the fact that like Diana Taurasi and Skylar Diggins were on the same team, and they got into that big fight now,
Right.
and then they had to go play each other. Like, they weren't teammates, and like they got in that huge argument, and they had to be separated. They weren't teammates. Like, there's so many other storylines you can go on that like would make the game, that could enhance the game, that could move the game forward. But we keep trying to talk about things, about situations that are going to stall the game.
Yeah.
Like, you're literally like, we're not
But I'll
talking about
say
anything
that
to move the game forward.
Any press is good press, and I think that because for so long the WNBA has just been missing eyeballs. I mean, their talent speaks for itself. You watch a game and you're immediately like, oh my gosh, I love watching this.
Technical part of it, like
Yeah.
the fundamental skill that they use, and that's the best part about the WNBA game is they play real basketball. They're not sitting there trying to just dunk on everybody and shoot threes. They're running offense. They're playing defense.
I think with time people will see.
There
all of that.
are data points though, and the most obvious to me is the average attendance at the games that Caitlin Clark's playing in.
Yeah, you can't
And
deny
the ones
it.
that
well,
she's
no,
not.
yeah, she has
It's like
an effect.
10,000 more
It's,
people.
it's like the LeBron effect before.
Sure.
Like, I mean, I get that, but also it's just that, it's just, I don't think it's as good for the WNBA that we just keep focusing on one player when this is the opportunity, because you are getting exposure, to expose
Right.
Well,
the WNBA.
But we do
to
this even
show
on
the WNBA.
We just said the name LeBron James. We even do this on the NBA level where we fixate on one person because they're talented and they become the it guy.
But at least we
She's
know
the it
about other.
girl.
But that's the thing is, like, at least the NBA has had that exposure.
I think with
The
time,
WNBA, there's no exposure other than
with
Caitlin
time,
Clark.
we'll get it will
well,
happen.
And so there are a couple more things. So you talk about Angel Reese or Skylar Diggins or Diana Taurasi, and just go down the entire roster.
Or still, and I think it's disrespectful to even say that Caitlin Clark is the best the best college player ever. Did anyone forget about Breanna Stewart?
Breanna Stewart was
she
great,
wasn't
but
the doggy that she was on a UConn team that had a bunch of other doggies. She still stood head above everybody else.
But had Caitlin Clark played at UConn, odds are she would have won a couple of titles because their
yeah,
team
but
is
she
just
would,
significantly
she wouldn't
better.
have set the records that she did, though. And that's
She
the thing
definitely
about
wouldn't have shot anywhere near as much as she did. But all of those players, 1 through 12 on every one of those teams, or however many they carry on their roster, have all been their star player, one of their two best players, certainly in high school, almost certainly in college. And because you play in the NFL, there are players who are better. You play with the best defensive player in football, but you've played with a number of guys, and I know your self-confidence is extremely high, that you know how good Aaron Donald is, but you're not going to just concede that, Aaron Donald is that much more dominant than you. Not that, I mean, we know what he's done, or any of these guys. You and J.J. Watt cross paths at Wisconsin, but you also cross paths with the basketball team at Wisconsin, and every one of those girls probably thought they should be in the WNBA. So I think there's just that alpha mentality of an entire roster full of really good basketball players that have a hard time just conceding, this girl's here now, and now. So there's that. It's a resentment, almost less about her specifically and more just the idea of her.
Well, and I think that it's fair to say, too, that there's probably some frustration attached to, like, yay, finally we got what we wanted, but why did it take her to get it? And at the end of the day, here's the only thing I can say. Caitlin Clark is the it girl, whether people like it or not, whether we agree with it or not. That is who the media is fixated on. We do it on every level. We do it in the NBA as well, where we fixate on somebody and they become the person that we are constantly talking about. It's like last year when the Nuggets absolutely obliterated the Lakers, and all we wanted to talk about was LeBron flirting with
close?
fucking retirement.
How-
Like,
what-
come on. Like, that's what I'm saying is we kind of just live in that space. I would say the best thing for the WNBA to do right now is just to understand that any press is good press. Eventually, their talent across the board, not just Caitlin Clark, will start to speak for itself.
You have
But-
chartered flights now. You have more
right,
eyeballs
but don't
on your
be
game.
frustrated with the process of getting you where you've always wanted to be. It's going to be frustrating. They're going to talk about her more than they talk about people that should be talked about. She had a really bad game the other night. What was it, like one of 10 from the
3
field?
points,
And so, but she was still all I saw on my feed. So I get what you're saying, but I think there just has to be a level of, hey, we don't agree with how it's happening, but let's not forget that this is what we've wanted
But
for
also,
a really
like,
long
I
time.
get that, but from a player's perspective,
Of course.
like, I can only imagine, like,
The frustration.
the frustration of,
of course.
we've been working our ass off this whole time. We've been doing, we've been training, we've been doing all this, like, we've been around,
Yep.
and then one person comes in, and that's how we get exposure is all through one. And I think that's where all the frustration's coming from.
Of
It's
course.
just because these women have put their bodies, blood, sweat, and tears on the line.
But it's either that or you don't get exposure.
Yeah, no, and I get
Lesser
it,
of two
because the
evils,
one
like,
thing that's going to happen though is and this is what you hope is it's going to make the TV contracts get bigger. It's going to make the
salaries
More
will
money.
go
Let's
up.
get
It's
more
going to make
money.
the salaries
Yes.
going to go up. It's going to make
Because what has always been the excuse for not paying WNBA
nobody
players?
watches it.
Nobody's
Nobody
watching
watches.
it,
So
and-
in my
and the games
opinion,
are-
I get that it's frustrating that you feel like you should have been watched long before Caitlin Clark came into the game, and that the talent has always been there, and there's been pioneers in the WNBA long before Caitlin Clark. But the excuse that has always been given when we have talked about WNBA players being underpaid is that people don't watch the WNBA. We now finally have eyeballs. The numbers speak for themselves in terms of people watching Caitlin Clark more than any other player. When she plays, the numbers are doubled. Okay, so we can't deny the facts. We can't deny the numbers. And at the end of the day, if you want to get paid, we're finally getting you there. So I get that it's frustrating, but at the same time, let's also give a little bit of a, hey,
And,
I'm mad that it wasn't me, but I'm glad that it's finally
But I wonder
happening.
how long it's going to go for.
Well,
though.
and over
that's
time
the
though,
thing.
two things are going to happen. Either she will be welcomed by her, I don't know what the equivalent of brethren is, sister,
So, I don't know.
sister-in? I don't think that's a word. But her fellow WNBA players will eventually embrace her the way LeBron's embraced, or any other great player that comes along that has.
And which
Kobe was
Okay,
embraced.
well, you said like how LeBron's embracing, so which is going to include.
I'm talking
them,
about-
like I'm just saying, which is going to include them making fun of her flopping.
It's
and,
gonna
like, you know what I
all,
mean? Like,
all of it, all of
And
it.
that's fine. She's got to get thick skin too.
all of
Absolutely.
it. And I don't
She's
think she-
gotta-
I don't think
but
she-
here's the thing: the biggest issue is her throwing her arms in the air. That has to change as a player,
Right,
as
you're
an
not in the Big
athlete.
Ten.
Yeah, but
her body language has to change because it's like you can't sit there and complain about anything.
yeah, but
that
look at the
teammates
example
do.
she has in the NBA. That's all they do is lay
Well,
horizontal
no,
on the
but
damn
like
ground.
she's complaining about her teammate. Like her teammates could do something. She's over here like that's the issue. Like
Okay,
her body
that's
language
fair.
when
Yes,
it comes
she
to
has
her
to be-
teammates. She had like
She
you're
needs to
like
toughen up
you
a little
come in,
bit.
you come in there and you can't look like you got to be like believe it or not, as a rookie she has to be a leader.
Well,
Like she has to go in there and
they
be a
drafted
leader.
her number 1 to come in and be their star. They have the worst team. It's gotten better with her, but they're still not great. There's better teams. And so that was going to be my other point. She'll be embraced or not, but over time you will see how good a lot of these other players
Yep.
are that aren't even necessarily the household names that the Sabrina Ionescu's and Angel Reese and Skylar Diggins and Diana Taurasi and Brianna Stewart. Like, you'll see them more as well as their teammates that you didn't necessarily know. And she will likely, just like Steph Curry's done, raise a generation. There'll be a generation of women's basketball players behind her that got into the game, that left another sport, left soccer, left volleyball, left softball to focus on basketball because they wanted to be the next Caitlin Clark. So this is going to be fascinating to see. Let's get back here in a decade. Hopefully we're all sitting here talking in some form or fashion and see where we're at, because I look at, this isn't apples to apples, but we touched on soccer. The best soccer player to ever walk the earth plays in Miami, okay? And when they come to town, like Kansas City, they can't
Sell
play
out
in
every time.
Sporting KC. They have to move to Arrowhead. And Patrick Mahomes flies in from Dallas just to see Messi. But Messi's 35, okay? And he brought a bunch of 35-year-olds with him that are all awesome and still better than the bulk of the players in the MLS. But the MLS isn't the best league in the world by any means. The WNBA is far and away the best women's league in terms of talent.
Is it though?
In terms of talent.
Yeah, I got,
Not in terms of pay. Those European leagues, certainly the Russian league. Like I remember Becky Hammond, now the coach of the Aces, but obviously Colorado State star, would play in the WNBA for, if it's 78 grand now, we'll call it 40 or 50, and then go make like 250 in Russia.
Well, that's how that's
But
how
the-
Brittany Griner's
But
whole
I'm just
thing
saying the
happened,
quality,
you know what I mean?
the MLS isn't the best quality. The best quality is certainly first in England, and then you can debate between Italy, Germany, Spain, whatever. It's probably Spain second. So MLS, they're never going to be higher than 5th, 6th, 7th until it all changes and they're bringing all those guys over.
Right.
But it's grown the eyeballs for now, and it will. When Messi moves, he moves. The Rapids numbers aren't necessarily up. You know, Apple TV subscriptions are up. I don't know if there's more people watching the Rapids or watching the San Jose Earthquakes or watching Sporting KC. But Caitlin Clark, because of the timing of this, does have a chance to get more eyeballs, get more participation, get more dads and moms taking their kids to games. And so in a decade, it'll be really fascinating to see where the WNBA is. We know that her rookie salary is 78 grand. Let's see in 5 years what it is, and then in 10 years what the rookies, because I think you're right about the TV contracts.
I hope it elevates
else.
everybody.
Yeah, and that's the hope. And
And it
I
should.
think people just feel left out, and they feel like they deserve their flowers for enhancing the game too.
And I
think
yes.
and you know, a predominantly black league, you know, we've always had this issues with the white savior, and I think that's where a lot of this anger comes from. Is because until Caitlin Clark came around, nobody paid attention to us.
I think what this will be the last thing I say on this, and then we can move on to the finals that start tomorrow. But
Finally.
yeah, right. But I will
forever.
say, I think that at the end of the day, what Caitlin Clark is doing, she didn't beg for. She didn't do extra things to say, pay attention to me.
Well, nothing she did.
It's her skill. Her talent is something we can't be mad at her for. She's a generational talent. To your point, there's a lot of those. But let's not forget that what she's doing, the numbers she's bringing in, the eyeballs, the seats that she's filling, eventually is going to benefit everyone. White, black, veteran, rookie. It doesn't matter. It's going to benefit the entirety of the league. So I think put your frustrations aside. I get it. You've been there. You've been paving the way and not being, congratulated for it or haven't gotten your flowers. But just understand that Caitlin didn't beg for this attention. She just is a good basketball player. And yes, it probably doesn't help that it does feel like the white savior moment in a predominantly black league. But that's where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
We're finally getting attention on athletes that have always deserved it. So let's just take what we got. It's going to eventually get where I think it needs to be. Right now, it's a lot of this and a lot of clicks.
But
But Caitlin Clark actually isn't the one saying shit. Like
that's what I'm saying. So they can't be mad at her.
Caitlin Clark actually, it's us. It's everyone in the media.
It's the watchers.
It's everyone in the media that's like constantly bringing up Caitlin Clark. If you look at it, Caitlin Clark has not done anything to push this agenda. Push this.
She just shows up and
there.
plays ball.
She's
Now,
literally-
does she flop around? Yeah, you could analyze her game and say, well, that annoyed me. But now she's under a microscope.
no
People
one's-
are
no
looking
one's
for
actually
shit to
looking
be
at her
irritated
game.
about.
And her
that's-
dad's yelling at her. I hope he's still yelling at her to just
Like,
leave the
play
rest
ball.
Just play ball.
Yeah, play ball, shut
which
your
I
mouth.
appreciate. And maybe at some point
I actually
she'll
love
have
that her dad did that.
Do you-
I love that.
Well, that's what I would do as a parent. Like, because the minute you start focusing on, and we talk about this in the NBA all the time. The minute you start focusing on the ref, you're not focusing all the way on basketball.
Correct.
Although, you guys, have y'all ever seen the clip? Because again, I'm dating myself and predating y'all. But LeBron, very early in his career, I believe his mom's name's Gloria, right? She was courtside at Cavs games very prominently, and it was just kind of quiet, right? They're playing a game, and she's yelling at it, and he goes, "Mama, sit down and shut the F up," and she did, or whatever. But it was one of those where it was. Because she was just, I think, writing the refs. The one other thing too, and it's funny because you're wearing very, very cool Brewers vintage jacket that Robin Yount
Very
probably
obnoxious
wore.
and bright.
Okay.
Oh my-
No, I, think
I
it's-
feel
I
the
think it's-
hate.
No, I but this is a conversation that some buddies and I were having on our text thread that all work in the business all over the country. Will the WNBA pass baseball in terms of a talking point? I was like, that ship has sailed because it took. And I work at a station where we have the Rockies. It took the Indians coming to town and me realizing, oh, shit, the Indians have the best record in baseball to know that 2 months in. Probably could be why I'm in last place in my fantasy baseball league. But the point being, and look, we are a basketball show that is, obviously drifting into some other topics, but still mostly basketball. Those debate shows in the morning or afternoon or whenever they're on, I don't say they set the agenda, but they're still going to talk about the most buzzworthy things, whether that's Stephen A. show, Skip Bayless show, PTI, whatever those are, Nick Wright. I can almost guarantee without having watched those there's not a lot of baseball showing up except for gambling scandals or if there's a crazy brawl
that
or
Padres-
something record-setting. Someone's hit 6 homers in a row to start it, and it's a mention, and they're moving on. This is a talking point. The WNBA has a chance to steal some summer heat.
Get
if you
all
will,
the conversations you
because
can.
we know, other than All-Star Game and Home Run Derby, baseball has become very provincial. It has. You love your Brewers, and you're watching them. Rockies fans love and if you're in New York, they're talking Yankees and Mets. If you're in St. Louis, they're talking Cards. They're talking Cubs and White
let's
Sox.
be real.
But
Baseball's
nationally, they're
salary
not.
cap. Salary cap. The lack of salary cap is why no one
And the lack of
cares about
stars.
no. It's just all the stars on the Dodgers, the Yankees, or that's the issue. Is
They're all in
there's
one
no
place.
small market teams that are really going to be relevant towards the end of the year because we all know the Dodgers are going to pay for their team. The Padres are going to try to pay for their team. The Yankees will try to
Sure.
sell
Red Sox,
sell
Rangers.
all those teams that have the big money.
Right, Rangers
big money
traded for
owners.
Max Scherzer.
Yeah, literally, you know what I mean? Like, all these teams that have the big money are going to, once again, flex their muscles and then push the small market teams out of the contention.
But that has,
then it's going to be the Braves versus, you know what I mean?
But that has changed the way people look at. Over the last 20 years.
Nobody cares about baseball.
Nobody cares
anymore
about
'cause the
baseball
teams are
except your
loaded.
team. Well, and except your team, you're still going to live and die with the Brewers. Plenty of Rockies fans are going to live and die with the Rockies. Mostly die
They're
more
still
than
Rockies
live right
fans?
now, but they're still Rockies fans.
Right.
Okay, but there are fans of the Kansas City Royals who actually have been playing good ball and have maybe the best shortstop in baseball. The Orioles have, and that's Baltimore.
They have a Cy Young candidate too, Seth Lugo.
Yeah, but my point being, baseball has become regional and provincial, and not that it won't be talked about in your local markets from time to time, especially if the teams are good or it's just woven into the fabric, like St. Louis, like Boston. But nationally, it's not moving the needle at all. And you could argue hockey is a more exciting sport, certainly soccer's growth. But the WNBA, because of Caitlin Clark getting eyeballs on the WNBA right now, otherwise the WNBA season, if she decided to stay in Iowa one more year, the WNBA season would have come with Angel Reese coming and all those other great players we've talked
probably
about.
would not look
and
the same
and the
way that it
needle
looks
would
right
not
now.
have moved. They wouldn't be on the charter flights. The ratings on their next TV contract, which is up soon, would not be there to raise that revenue.
There's frustrating aspects of Caitlin Clark getting the attention she's getting, but I think that the WNBA should just be thankful that they're finally getting the attention and take advantage of it. Let the media personalities who have never watched your sport before talk about it, because guess what? It's making people want to watch what you're doing.
It makes me think of
it's gonna eventually
you want somebody
work out.
You want somebody to stop smoking. They finally stop smoking. Like, well, why didn't you stop smoking for the last 10 years? I've been asking you for 10. It's like, look, I'm not smoking anymore. Leave me alone.
But the one thing I want to make sure is said though is like Caitlin Clark didn't ask for any of this.
She didn't.
And so I just think the unnecessary attention. I wouldn't say unnecessary because it's what needed. It's exactly what's needed in order to, like you said, move the needle in the game. But
you understand the frustration of her peers.
Absolutely.
Like I completely understand all the frustration of her peers, but just like
we just spent 20 minutes.
Well,
talking about
I'm saying, imagine like
Right.
like we're seeing all these top quarterback lists, and they're putting Caleb Williams above quarterbacks that actually
Correct.
played football.
It's just part
you
of
know
where.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just kind of it's the ugly.
The era
part where
of
the
media.
where you got people behind computers that get to make rankings that,
I got a text as we were doing this show from someone associated with the Raiders, but that Colin Cowherd loving on Bo Nix, saying, "Oh, it's a steal." Phil Sims was on KOA yesterday talking about he had Bo Nix rated.
How do you know if it's a steal if they have not
right.
against any competition
Right,
yet?
but so
this is what kills me. Like this time I know you have nothing to talk about.
They said, "Can we see if he plays a snap before?" It sounds
Right.
like Colin is ready to send him to Canton. And
That's what I'm like.
as much as Broncos fans would love to see Bo Nix be awesome, and we can always use more awesome
right.
quarterbacks in the league.
But also,
There's not
do you
enough.
ever hear a coach say a quarterback some shit? No, because then he's the one that drafted him. He's not
Right.
going to be
Then
like
he looks like Boo Boo
yeah,
the Fool.
exactly. Like no one's going to be like, oh yeah, he sucks. No, like when have you always hear every year. When Daniel Jones came out, they said he was blazing, and now look like it's just it's
Danny Dimes.
nonstop. It's nonstop. Every
Y'all play the
offseason
Bears
where
this
they
year?
have it's like nonstop. Every offseason where we start we get into this this cycle of just talking about stuff that's unproven, and we put
the unknown's
proven
more exciting
statements behind it.
I will say, the unknown's more exciting than what's
known.
see.
Because here,
True.
I don't want to minimize your team or the approach to the league, but this was sort of in that same conversation about WNBA versus baseball. Football right now isn't that exciting to talk about. We can always come up with stuff to talk about, but with what's going on, OTAs, mini camps, all that, nothing is blowing anyone's mind. Then we're going to have 5 weeks of no football talk. Camp's going to start, and we're going to get rolling. But because of what Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs have been able to do in winning 3 of the last 4 Super Bowls, and him still as good as Joe Burrow has been against him and as good as all these other quarterbacks, your quarterback, Josh Allen, and we can go down the list of really good quarterbacks, and then the Dak Prescotts of the world that are certainly in a tier below. There's a gap right now with Patrick Mahomes. Doesn't mean the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl by any means, but it's not as fun to talk about how great he is, just like talking about the Warriors when they were on that run, especially once they added KD, isn't stylish. So trying to figure out what's next. Can Caleb Williams dethrone like that's
I've
sort
always
of, can
said,
Deshaun Watson get there? Can Josh Allen finally get there? But it feels like there's a big gap right now, so we're just grasping at straws.
there
to
was a
create
time period
conversations.
where my social medias were blowing up, and it's because the Avs had just won. TCU went to the championship.
My man
The
Sonny
Nuggets
Dykes.
won a championship. So I was in this position. The Broncos were a dumpster fire. Let me tell you, I have learned from a content perspective, nobody likes an average team. They like dumpster fires, or they like the Chiefs winning 3 of 4 Super Bowls. They like either the good or the really bad. They don't like to talk about teams that, are just over 50 and have a decent quarterback and a decent defense. No, they like to talk about really shitty teams or really exceptional teams. So in that time period, I even found an opportunity with TCU. It's like they had this standout season. Woo, they're this underdog Cinderella story. They go to the championship, even getting absolutely obliterated. I got great content opportunities
I
because
lost money
it
on
was
that
hilarious.
because I bet on I think I told you this. I don't know. Sonny Dykes was my running backs coach in high school.
I
His
love
first
Sonny
job out of
Dykes.
school.
Love
And
him.
so I'm like, you know what? They played well. I'm like, I think they're going to lose by 50. And I even told my neighbor Jonathan that, and he bet it. And then I bet him to cover and the over. And the over might have hit on their own. Georgia might have hit the over.
I
but
think
they
Georgia
definitely
did it by
definitely
themselves in the first half,
Right, they did, but they
unfortunately.
definitely did not. Like the over, yeah, it was whatever it was. They
It was
definitely did
brutal.
not cover.
It was
and
brutal.
they lost by 50 or whatever.
Yeah, it was brutal.
But yeah.
Either way, let's get into NBA Finals before we get out of here. We'll talk a little bit of basketball since this is Hoops Your Daddy. We've kind of gone all over the map.
I do have a question for y'all. I do have a question.
Yes.
Like, so, I know you guys have heard it about how the Timberwolves took a stand of not going to inside the NBA and talking to them because of Draymond Green.
Oh.
And because after they won,
Because
nobody
he
went.
was tough on Rudy.
So yeah, Rudy and Cat. But I guess my question is more of like, what do you think about that? Like, as a former player, like when you go in there, do you need to be more, neutral, or
There's nothing
like that? Isn't that why you have us go on?
Yeah.
Is because we have that.
Yes,
that
you
history?
should be.
And
In a perfect world, you should be neutral. But if you're bringing Draymond Green on, neutral and Draymond Green do not belong in the same sentence ever.
He may get there. This is the problem. As cool as it is when active players are working in the media, it depends on what you're doing, right? But when you're on the biggest show with the most eyeballs, and you're that guy, but you're still a current adversary in their same conference, and you've been a dick to them on the court like he has to probably all 29 other teams at some point.
Like he's still playing, which is what makes it a little bit shady.
Because I go back to Charles Barkley years ago when Kobe went refused to shoot in Phoenix in that game, and Chuck dogged him on TV. Then the next year it came up or whatever, and Charles was like, I should have said it to Kobe face to face. And it's like, no, you should. I'm not saying you shouldn't have also, but TNT is paying those guys to have opinions, and they're no longer playing. Mm-hmm. So they're not going to be overly critical. But Shaq always talks about Kareem and Bill Walton were hard on me.
Dwight Howard. Remember, he's
right.
Still hard on Dwight
Howard.
But
he's hard on them because he wants them to be great, and he thinks big men should dominate. And so he admits that, and even said it again the other day, just talking about Bill Walton being hard on it. And Charles and Kenny are going to be critical. Draymond can be critical. It's that because he's still a current player. Give Draymond 3 years out of the league, odds are Rudy and Cat in that same situation might still talk to him, and his criticism may sound different, but he's still coming as like, well, I got to play these guys next year, and I think they're garbage or whatever.
Well,
they're overrated.
It's just a bold statement from a guy that spends more time in the locker room than on
But
the
also,
court.
I think that a bit of it is too, like Draymond and Rudy are always fighting for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yep.
And so obviously, you have those feelings of I'm a better defender than this guy.
How many does Draymond have? Does he have one?
I think Draymond has one. But then also it's like
Draymond's version of defense too is dragging Rudy by his neck across the court. So like, come on now. I mean, my gosh, like I get that y'all have beef, but like it just is weird. It is, but
For all of his bullshit,
Draymond does more of this to me.
it works.
I believe but it works though, and that's why I love Draymond. I love the way he plays.
You would love him on your team.
I
You would
love
him on
exactly.
your team.
That's somebody who you would love to have on your team. And yeah, I get it. It may get a little overboard every once in a while, but
A little?
That's who you know
He
who
should
he
go,
is.
he should go do WWE SummerSlam.
Man, honestly, he would be great if he
would.
wouldn't. But I'm just
I
saying,
think
like,
he has a
that's
bright
somebody
future
who-
as a WWE SummerSlam
I think
contestant.
that's somebody who you want on your team. But then also, like, when it comes to commentary, you're supposed to put your personal,
Neutrality, I think, is
Yeah,
important.
your bias needs to, in that role. They are bringing you on as a current player, but they're not asking you to pick fights.
He
with the
doesn't
guys
need
playing.
neutrality on his podcast. He
Sure.
does need it behind the desk. That's how
Okay,
I feel.
I can agree.
When you're behind the
desk.
desk and you're on
Yes,
air and on
TNT
TV,
TNT is paying
table
him.
some of those personal feelings on your podcast. Go crazy, go stupid.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
talk
such a,
all your
But also,
shit.
though, don't you want to know? Don't you want the athlete mindset of like, this is what I think of this player? Because if you ask me about some guards, I'll tell you that there's some shit. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the thing is like, if you ask me about people I go against, I'll give you a honest assessment of them. You know what I mean? But and so it's like, that's somebody he goes against.
Fair. I mean,
all
he's
the
entitled to
time.
his
You-
opinion.
And I think you're not paying Draymond to go on TNT to give some neutral opinion.
No, and
you know what you're getting.
You know what you're
when
getting
you're
with
bringing
Draymond Green,
on
yes.
there.
and
So-
that's the other side of it too. TNT is paying him, and they have been for the last couple of years. And he comes in on bye weeks and this and that, or when he's hurt or whatever, all of that, and he's contributed certainly to playoff coverage. They know that if Draymond's going to piss people off, that's what they're paying him for, and they have to understand, and I think they do, that the T-Wolves are going to say, "Screw you! You want to pay Draymond? That's your choice. We're choosing not to come up there, not because we don't love Chuck and Shaq and Ernie and Kenny,
And
but y'all have
that's their
Draymond,
choice, though.
and that's their choice.
That's
And so
their choice.
TNT, they don't need more eyeball. Like they're going to get the ratings they're going to get.
Right.
It's a little more controversy to say, okay,
Well, are they? They're about to lose his contract.
they're about to
so-
not
Oh,
get
that
that.
breaks my
But I'm
heart.
saying Draymond
Oh,
being there, or
man,
not,
that's
or the T,
terrible.
like us talking about it, isn't going to be like, oh well, now I have to watch it next time to see if Draymond pisses someone else, and maybe that will get someone. But odds are you're already watching it. It's more just, do you care that most players will talk to them, and if you put Draymond up there, some players won't, and clearly
Right.
right now they don't.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay,
I could
so-
argue they don't need Draymond.
But that's their right though. You know what I mean?
For
But
sure.
it's great TV. And,
It is.
And honestly, it's Draymond being unapologetically Draymond. And
Always. And he always
but
is, and I
that's-
respect that.
And that's what you got to respect.
I
That's
respect
him.
it. 100%. 100%. Speaking of the Timberwolves, I have to tuck my tail and say, holy shit, I was wrong. I said that the Mavs did not stand a chance. Luka and Kyrie gave me the Celtics middle finger, okay? Kyrie was like, nah, not feeling your vibe. Liv Moods, you are dead wrong. I'm going to prove you wrong. And he absolutely did. So did Luka. So did the Mavs. Just overall very impressed by this Mavericks team. Very excited to see what this Mavericks team can do against the Celtics. And this is what I'm going to start with before I toss to the fellas, okay? In a perfect world, Kyrie Irving would obliterate not only the Boston Celtics, but their fan base as well.
They're
That's a
very
perfect
racist
world.
fan base.
Yes, and I would love to see it happen. I would love to see the middle finger happen, but this
Patriots.
time
Yeah.
with a championship ring on it, okay? I would love that. Now, here's where I struggle. Since March 6th of 2022, Kyrie Irving is 0-10 versus the Boston Celtics. Oopsies. I'm hoping that changes because I would love nothing more than to see Kyrie take down the very fan base that treated him like
Wait, what'd you say?
garbage.
He's what?
0-10 since March 6th of
Okay.
2022
Okay.
against the Boston
Okay,
Celtics.
okay,
So,
Christ.
hello. Overall, I think that the Mavs have a very talented team. We saw them take down the Timberwolves, who took down the reigning NBA champions. The Celtics have also had a very impressive season. They're a fundamentally sound basketball team that has had, in my opinion, a downfall, which has been a cakewalk through the Eastern Conference, not playing a Jimmy Butler-less Heat team, a Tyrese Halliburton-less Pacers team, and a Donovan Mitchell-less Cavs team. They have had the best players on the opposing teams not playing, so essentially it's been a little easier for them than maybe for the Mavs. The Mavs will be more battle-tested. Will that work in their favor? I don't know. But what I will say is KP, Porzingis, who we've talked about on this show, may be making a return for Game 1, which adds another weapon to this Celtics arsenal. Fellas, predictions. What are we feeling? Derek Lively, we're hoping, is
Yeah.
going to be healthy. Fingers crossed. What are our predictions? How do you see this one playing out?
Before, I'm a huge Drew Holiday fan. I believe in Drew. He was
Don't
on
we
the
know
Bucks
it?
forever. Love Drew. Drew couldn't do shit to stop Kyrie when we played the Nets. When we played the Nets and Katie's foot was on the line, and that year we won the championship, Kyrie was cooking. It was nothing him and it was.
Ooh,
nothing,
I want Kyrie to cook.
It was nothing Kyrie couldn't do, and I just think Kyrie's just when it comes finals time, he's that guy. And
I
so,
want it. I need it so bad.
And honestly, I hate the Celtics that much, and so I'm gonna go.
I'm gonna go Mavs in 4.
I'm gonna go. No, because we were talking about it yesterday. After I walked off the practice field with the Browns, they had the whole
Also, shout out to Shelby for being here after a little practice yesterday.
Hey.
And a
He
little
loves
golf
us.
on Monday.
He loves Denver. He loves Guerilla
yeah.
Sports.
He's like, hey, I got to
okay?
shoot over to Cleveland. Like, all right, cool.
Couldn't
He's
stay
got a
away.
Couldn't
couple
stay
days of
away.
practice. Wait, a day of golf and a day of practice. Were you even on the? I'm not saying were you on the field. Did you go through drills or were you just watching?
I went to drill. Come on, why would I? I'm not gonna waste my time and fly all the way to Cleveland just to stand and watch.
I just didn't know.
He's on the sideline.
I would have told one of the reporters this FaceTime me, and I could watch from home. No, but I'm a big believer in Kyrie, and
Love Kyrie.
and I love Luka's mindset, and I think Dallas has the bigs to compete.
Yep.
PJ Washington I think is a perfect matchup for Al Horford in the court. Like they damn near the same player 20 years apart.
Yeah,
Mhm.
PJ's
You know what I mean?
more athletic at this point.
That's what I said. Damn the same player 20 years apart. So PJ Washington versus Al Horford, I think that's a wash.
Yep.
Right there. And then now Derek Lively versus KP, if KP's in there, that might be
Which KP are you getting to though? Is
exactly.
Like,
Is he gonna be,
not only is he healthy.
So I think if you're talking about just straight players, I think it has to be Mavs and 6.
Ooh, I love that.
Okay, so
BK, what say you?
and you guys know this. I don't know who, but I am from Dallas,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
I can go back very clearly. No, I mean,
Barely.
barely, yeah. I can go back to, I have ticket stubs and pictures of when they were a shitty franchise
Mm-hmm.
in the Jason Kidd, Jamal Mashburn, Jim Jackson era,
Photoshop.
before and around that. Talking to Popeye Jones, who was on those teams, Tim Legler, who I ran
Cut
into.
Shelby's mic, producers.
Like
Cut his damn mic.
I was in the Tim Legler fan club. You, my buddy Peter. So when I see Legs, it's always fun because he remembers me taking pictures of him when I'm in high school. So I suffered through that. Then Dirk came along, and Mark Cuban bought the team in reverse order. And so it was easy to cheer for them. And I went to the finals when they won, when they beat the Heat. I went to the 3 games in Dallas. Wish I would have gone to game 6. But over time, my fanship for all the teams in Dallas has just kind of waned, or with the Stars never even really existed. But I certainly have been a Mavs fan for a long time. I don't live and die with them now. I think Luka's awesome. That was clearly a good trade for the Mavs to
Very good.
draft Trae Young and then trade for Luka straight up. And I'd like to see him win, and I think they probably will. Kyrie's weird personality has made me not be in a hurry to cheer for them. And when they played the Nuggets, if they would have played the Nuggets in the finals, I don't think I would have been outwardly cheering. But certainly for what we do and having been around the Nuggets and how I think I'm probably, in my heart of hearts, a little bit more of a Nuggets fan. Like, I was in Tahoe when they played that Sunday game. Kyrie makes that running left-hander.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I found out Kyrie's actually left-handed in everything he does. His dad made him a right-handed basketball player, so him
That's
shooting with
dope.
his left probably isn't that weird compared to most. And he's made that a couple times. So I'm certainly cheering for the Mavs. I've got no love for the Celtics. It would be interesting to see Tatum finally win one and what that would change for his legacy. But if he loses
sure.
it, that continues to cement his legacy as maybe the best player in the league to not be anywhere.
He's still young.
He's young, but he's in year 8, dude.
I know, but that's what happens when kids come out at 19.
Yeah,
but
sure, right.
I'm just saying,
right.
he's
Jordan
still,
won it in year 8 or whatever.
When did how old was LeBron when he
Year
got
8.
his first one? That's what I'm saying. He's still young.
Yeah, I'm not picking on him.
When we start stressing about, first off, when ring chasing, when this ring chasing era anyway. But when we start, players, I feel like once you get 10 years in, then it's like, all right, well, maybe, I might have to, move and get a chip. But basketball and football are also way different.
He's
so
not
that's
going
all
anywhere. And even though Jaylen Brown can't dribble, he's a really fascinating player. Derek White is from here, right? He is.
It's unbelievable that he is in the highest level of
and makes
basketball.
$264
And we're
million.
saying Jaylen Brown can't dribble.
I'm just so
sorry.
confused. He just
crazy
doesn't have a left
to me.
hand. He can dribble with his right, though, but
Bob Cousy,
cool.
he's Bob Cousy's favorite player. Like, I used to joke with Dave Logan. I used to joke with Dave Logan that I was born too late because if I would have played it, before there was as much integration.
There's a lot of white Jewish dudes.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, WNBA or WNBA in the 30s for sure. And he's like, how'd you guard Bob Cousy? I go, make him go left. That's it.
No, I just remember seeing those videos.
Yeah, he's like, and he's dribbling in circles. Looks like Curly Neal out there for the Globetrotters. But so I would like to see the Mavs win. I think they create some interesting matchup problems, and KP's status certainly can swing the series one way or the other. Because if he's out there and playing like he's playing early in the year, you're like, oh shit, this is why the Celtics are going to be the team to beat. But then it's also KP has a hard time staying healthy.
Yeah.
He had that in Dallas.
Yeah, what
He
version?
certainly had
You
it
made
in
a
New
great
York.
point. What version of him do you get in game
And so
one?
he's-
Just because
to me,
he's
he's-
Was it
healthy.
a calf? Was it what was it?
I don't even know
To,
what his
to me,
injury
he's
was.
really.
What
To me,
it was,
he's
I think
the
it was
X
a calf,
factor,
and
though.
if it was a calf, then that's something you really got to be worried about.
Yeah, you
'cause
gotta
calves lead to
get worried.
Achilles.
I gotta say too, from a non statistical or basketball standpoint, I also just really love seeing Kyrie happy. There's something about this team and Luka as his partner
Cavs
in
Well,
crime.
they wrote him off though. Like you think about it, after COVID, they literally everyone literally was saying,
And
get
I
rid of
get
Kyrie.
it, BK. I get what you're saying. He does do some weird
He's
shit
weird
But
off the
he
sometimes.
court,
does
but
his
on the
own
court.
But guess what? He's also the best ball handler in the league, and he's fun to watch.
I think
and I love seeing him thrive.
And he actually don't. He like literally, he's one of the.
He minds his
best,
business. He's
like,
weird, but he
like,
minds his
he's like-
business.
He minds his business, but then the thing is he does so much philanthropy that like
Yes.
for people to say he's shit, like they obviously don't know anything about Kyrie.
No, I'm saying he's
Irving.
weird.
I'm saying, yeah, he's weird, but he takes care of his community. He does, he does.
And at
he
least
goes
he can dribble.
over and beyond
Well, and
what
so
a normal
let me throw
human's supposed to do for the next human.
Let me.
So let's talk. Like Kyrie's a person. You got
But
you
again,
got nothing. But like
we
you
can
say
give
he's
him
weird.
flowers for being a good person.
Yeah.
He is weird,
Yeah,
but he minds his business.
and
Part of
He
the
does a
reason
lot of great stuff off the court, and he's a good ass basketball
Part of
player.
no, he's
man,
great.
Good.
The-
He's fought, man. What?
Part of the reason that Celtics stat is weird is because had he have chosen to play more, he might have had a chance to beat them more when he was on his own stance of not choosing to get vaccinated. Not because he didn't believe in the vaccine, because he didn't believe in the mandate. And again, he's his own guy to do what he wants.
Totally.
But he missed games against the
Yeah.
Celtics, presumably,
Yeah.
over that year and a half. This was thrown to me by Big Al, who we all know, obviously won Super Bowls here, but huge basketball fan, played college ball at CU, was a McDonald's All-American
Big Al
alternate.
play basketball.
A little bit. Him and Dave Logan both did. Both played games in Allen Fieldhouse for the Buffs.
Back in the 30s, baby.
It was a while back. But Big Al calls me because he knows I'm from Dallas, thinks I'm watching the game. I'm not even sure I was watching whatever early round play. He goes, I think Kyrie Irving is the most skilled point guard in the history of the
By
NBA.
far.
And I said, I'm not going to argue with you because his dad, who played
In
college
Australia.
ball and played in Europe, I think his mom
He played in
died.
Australia.
Yeah, or in Australia. His mom died, I think, when he was in elementary school, which is obviously tragic. But his dad focused all his energy into making him not only right-handed, but this dominant basketball player that
Yep.
his ball handling, his shooting, he's maybe not as athletic as, say, a Russell Westbrook who plays the same position, but is athletic enough, certainly can finish above the rim and can get by you, can play enough defense, certainly can pass the ball as well as any of your top-level point guards. So I couldn't argue against it that he might be the most skilled point guard we've ever seen.
How cool is it that Kyrie, he's starting his own brand. His first signature athlete is his dad. I think that
It's
that
the dopest thing ever.
That's so
And in
cool.
addition
So what are
to
you buying? Like
in
like
addition
New
to
Balance,
Kyrie
dad shoes?
being on a team where I feel like he's appreciated and he's wanted, and to see him happy, and to then be going against a team that really wronged him and was kind of shitty to him.
He's gonna get booed.
Have
so
that
loud.
deal that just went through that is super exciting, and then you have LeBron James speaking so highly about him on a podcast when he really didn't have to say a thing about Kyrie. I know they're talking through the finals and the teams that are there, but I don't know. I just right now, Kyrie Irving, love ya.
Okay, well, so
That's how I feel.
and-
I'm just
and-
a big fan.
And look,
no,
let's
it's,
go
it's like
Mavs.
it's just like it seems like everything's happening how it's supposed to
I
happen.
hope it's
and
I
I'm
hope
gonna-
it's all falling
and
together
that's
for
what I'm
Kyrie
saying.
this
I
year.
can't wait for them to all boo the shit out of him
And then him to
Boston,
ball.
and then for him to
the
hit
F.
the game-winning shot.
Well,
I'm
and then-
calling it right now.
Okay.
He's literally
Yep.
he's just gonna turn. He's not gonna say shit and just walk.
And
walk
that's
I
what I'm
can't
saying.
wait.
So look,
Can't wait.
Luka is certainly in that tier of best players right now in the league that don't have a ring in terms
Yeah.
of what you've seen from him year in year
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Certainly in the last 4 or 5 years, MVP candidate. So again, as someone from Dallas who's admired the way Luka plays, other than he at times maybe has the ball a little too much. But with Kyrie, they do such a good job of playing off each other, especially in late game moments, and playing by feel, which is something you only get when you have that chemistry, just like Jamal Murray and Joker obviously have, or Giannis when he was there with Drew and Middleton in that, in terms of understanding that. They certainly have that. It seems like at times the Celtics do, and other times they don't. Because like, wait, Derek White's now the closer.
Nah, I need that game 5 Luka.
Yeah,
That game
and so when
five
you have that
Luka,
guy, I mean,
you
he's
can't
an
lose with
assassin,
that.
right? And you're like, oh, he just needs a little bit of space. the game winner that he hit against Gobert in, what was that, game 3? Game 2 maybe in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, oh, once he's out there on me, I just step to the, like, he's like, I didn't even see him. And the
He's
guy's
also
7.
running his mouth so much, like,
It's
and I
love
just
it.
am
Great.
eating it up. Like I am
So,
so happy.
Shelby,
with the
you
Mavs
said
right
Mavs
now.
in 6. Game 6 will be in Dallas. Last time they won it, and that was in the 2-3-2 format. They won it there, and that has nothing to do with some of the same fans. I'm sure they're 13 years later. But I'm going to go with you, and I'm going to say Mavs in 6. I had Timberwolves in 7,
Man, you
but
copycat.
I'm a
I'm gonna say
copycat in
that's
this instance. Some changers.
It's a
I'm going to
copycat
go.
league.
I'm going to go Mavs in 6. So if you want to change yours,
I'm gonna
go
be
for it.
cooler than them and say Mavs in 5.
5 in Boston, game winner.
Yes,
Okay.
and Kyrie walks off the
Dog.
floor like
Dog,
this,
if
middle
Kyrie
fingers
wins it,
up, and he eats that fine up. He says, NBA, here's one fine, here's another. I'll go under my leg with it. I hope he, not only do I hope he wins a ring and then ruins Celtics fans' lives, but I hope he does it in Boston. Mavs in 5. I'm eating it up.
man, I love
I'm
it.
all about a
I love
storyline.
it. No, I love it. And honestly, like, you know, everyone talks about Boston's this whole story franchise or whatever. I'm like, you guys haven't won shit in 50 years. Like, you guys
Not
like,
50.
like, KG, yeah, other than that one, like,
Yeah.
you guys have been irrelevant. So I'm not really worried about the storied history of the Celtics or anything. But
And look,
I like the Mavs. I really do like the Mavs. But I'm telling you, like, Luka has to be that guy that he has.
but I think he will. But I think he will be.
But like, you know, but here's the thing, you know, it's his first finals. Sometimes the lights sometimes get too bright. But you know, the one thing
Yeah,
that
but
keeps
for
me
Kyrie, it
positive,
won't be.
I'm gonna say the one thing that keeps me like, you know, positive and happy about Luka is that he's talking shit the whole way.
Well, and at
So,
every
you know, man,
moment,
like
And
every
backing it
shot,
up with every
shot. So it's like,
three-pointer.
you know, this
From the logo, he's backing
for
it up.
ballers like that, you live for this moment. You know what I mean? So you know, I'm excited. I just want a good series, and I think it will be a good series. And I just hope for everyone to be healthy, and I hope for it not to be decided by some dumbass injury.
I love that. I agree.
or a
hope the
controversial call.
I hope the refs
yeah.
stay. I was about to say, I hope the refs stay out of it. I hope we just get to see some good basketball.
I will say we have one comment from YouTube. It says Kyrie versus the Celtics, the final chapter.
Yeah.
Oh, that
it
just gave me
is.
And
chills
nobody
all
here,
over my
nobody
body.
here is going to feel sorry for these Boston sports fans that have seen now the Red Sox win a few World
Oh,
Series.
yeah.
The Bruins won a couple of years ago. Even the Celtics when they won, and certainly all those Patriots championships. I enjoy complain. They're going to complain anyway. So rather than
No matter
complain
what.
about them not winning despite having good teams, because we know the Bruins are obviously really good. They were good last year, got knocked out of the playoffs. The Red Sox have the money to be good and spend it, but their teams have been kind of shitty the last couple of years.
Mhm.
And I'm fine with the Patriots being terrible forever because I've
Yeah.
seen them win enough.
You know,
Forever and
Boston's a
ever and
racist
ever.
ass area.
Yeah.
I remember playing the Patriots and get called the N-word and all that
Yeah.
stuff every chance you get. So, you know, and you've heard it from every athlete possible.
Bill
that's
Russell
played
would
in Boston.
They've all said
And
it.
so
Yep.
honestly, I wish them nothing but the worst.
So Boston,
that's what I'm
kick
saying.
rocks with open-toed shoes, and
Be better.
and
Please,
and,
be
and
better.
Kyrie's coming for your neck. Okay, that's all I have to say. Mavs in 5. Well, this has been another episode of Hoops Your Daddy.
We're going to miss Shelby for a week or two between mandatory minicamp and other obligations.
Mexico.
Or we take Hoops Your Daddy on the road. We show up to camp with a camera and a mic.
Hey,
That's
you
my
Come to
never
goal.
know.
Cleveland
Hey,
next
you
week.
never
Whoop,
know.
whoop. No, we'll miss Shelby, but we'll be here still chatting about all things NBA
The
finals.
finals, and we'll have a very shitty draft on the horizon as well as free agency.
Hey, and watch this draft actually end up being one of the best
I'll
ones.
take the under.
I know, but I'm gonna stay positive.
And if you guys so desperately want it, we can talk about maybe doing some of those post-game lives again. Those have been doing really well. They're super fun. I'm a night owl. I'll be up anyway, so we can chat about all things basketball, hang out a little bit. I might even crack open a damn beer while I sit here.
Perhaps
I
a
don't know.
Corona.
Perhaps a Corona with a lime. So there you go. Thanks for joining me. I am Liv Moods. This is Shelby Harris. This is BK, Brandon Krisztal with KOA and Guerilla Sports. We are a Guerilla Sports family. We appreciate you being here, and we will see you soon. Go Mavs.